Well, hello everybody, welcome back to Literature in Robes with your host Jared.
Hey, bet your butt.
Bet your butt.
We're going to be talking about a new trilogy today. It is the Grave of Empires Trilogy by Sam Sykes.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's been a trilogy that I picked up, and I don't know, something just attracted me to it. The Seven Blades in Black is the first one, 10 Arrows of Iron, and 3 Axes to Fall. The 3 books are pretty chunky each. They're a little bit thicker than your average book, in my opinion, especially concerning subject matter. It wasn't a really deep, thoroughly researched type of world. It felt to me like it was fun for Sam Sykes to perhaps write this character, this world, and everything about the story. So the first story, Seven Blades in Black, basically the 7 people that Sal the Cacophony has called revenge upon because somehow people have taken her magic from her and now she wants revenge. We are brought into this world, and the first chapter, first moment of this book is pretty intense. It pulls you right in. We're introduced to this character, Treta, who's a governor militant in the army of the revolutionaries, and they have this prisoner who is the main protagonist, Sal the Cacophony, and she's snarky and sarcastic. She's very off the cuff, very much the type of character that relies on herself and has somehow found her way as a captive in jail where she's going to be interrogated by Treta. So after that introductory period, we find out that Sal the Cacophony is telling her story prior to and leading up to her being put into this interrogation room. And so you find that Sal is this very dark character who has a heart, can be a very warm character, but at the same time, she doesn't feel like she can rely on anybody. However, Sal has a certain demeanor, a certain way that she talks about everything. So you kind of have to be okay with hearing and reading the excessive use of the word f***. So it's all over this, but it's definitely from the voice of Sal the Cacophony.
Go f*** yourself.
That is where Sam Sykes' writing of this story really shines, I think. He really makes this character all up in your face the whole time you're reading, which can be at the same time very entertaining, but also it can be somewhat exhausting to be going at full throttle a lot, because sometimes when Sal is not going after her missions, her rest periods can be kind of like, whoa, all right, this is a little bit slower, a little more subdued, but they also offer a little more emotional component.
All these emotions are running through my body right now.
Sal also has this weapon that is called the Cacophony, and there's something mysterious about this weapon in the book. Is part of what makes it very interesting. Part of what keeps you reading is all the things that it can do. So the first book is really just kind of a fast-paced go, learn about what kind of character Sal is, the people that she brings in with her. So after reading all of the first book, I thought it was great. Had no idea. I'd never read Sam Sykes before. This whole world is kind of a steampunk magic versus mechanics world. It gave a really cool vibe, something fresh, something new, and I gave it a 4.6 out of 5 robes. The cover art here is pretty neat. The cover art is by Jeremy Wilson, and it's kind of different. I don't know, kind of attracted me on the shelf. It's really kind of stark, but it also grabs your eye. It's pretty good. I really enjoyed it. It set the stage for the world and everything, and trying to find out going forward what is going to happen. So it definitely hooked me in and made me want to read the next book, which is 10 Arrows of Iron, furthering the story of Sal the Cacophony. By the end of the first one, you discover that she does break free of her interrogation. I don't think that's spoiler at all to say that, because there's, after all, 2 more books to read. She can't be stuck in an interrogation room the whole time. That would be just a poor choice by Sam if that was all his plan was for Sal the Cacophony. But yes, it starts to open the world why Sal is the person that she is, why she's alone. She was formerly part of the Empire, if you will, where magic users are somewhat prolific in their ranks. We're introduced to the Revolution, another faction of humans that are very much against the Imperium, as they call it. It felt kind of like I'd had that second book slump to it a little bit, to where the action and everything that I had read in book 1, it continued on. Didn't really open anything up in a new creative way. Nothing new was brought to the fore. The stakes seem to get higher, and we do kind of see the main character being indestructible unreliable. It becomes kind of annoying in a way in the second book. You have to kind of suspend your belief in that regard. Though it kind of makes you wonder as the unreliable narrator, since Sal is still the first person narrative in the second book as well as the third book. It does kind of lend itself to, maybe someone who's telling their story, they're going to be a little grandiose, or they're going to be a little hyperbolic, maybe perhaps a little dramatic in the way that they present their story. The second book opens your eyes to what the steampunkiness of the revolution can do. We're introduced kind of to the two factions that are at opposites, and you also are introduced to another crime syndicate, smuggling operation that exists in this world too. There's definitely some expansion of the world. We do learn a little bit more about the background of some of the main characters, and inevitably the action does pick up in the books. There's kind of a lull early on in through the first half, but then things definitely pick up if you're into action and whatnot. The second book, we find that Sal the Cacophony is in this place alone with someone else, except this time they're not being interrogated. And the person that she's talking to is someone who is a healer with good intentions. Somehow Sal always ends up with someone that she can tell her story to.
What a story, Mark.
10 Arrows of Iron was definitely a different thing. It felt more steampunky than the first one. Again, the artwork is by Jeremy Wilson. I thought it was pretty good. My score for it was a 4.4 out of 5 robes. Again, it felt like I was rehashing a lot of what was going on in the first book. The style, the way the action was. Sometimes there are these empty platitudes or these hyperbolic statements, these ultimatums and things that just kind of pass by because it's just a character talking hot and, being macho and whatnot. There's a little bit of that, but the story is still very much interesting, which brings us to the third book, 3 Axes to Fall. I took about 3 months off to read this one, which I think cleansed my palate, and I think that was part of what my problem with the second book was that I read it about 3-4 books after I read the first book. And so that character, that style of storytelling was so far very much fresh in my mind. And that second book is about 600 and some odd pages. So that kind of sluggish feel starts happening because I'm just overly familiar with the writing style, I suppose. And Sam Sykes kind of developed in it a little bit more. But in this third one, I felt like he was a little more on point. I feel like his emotional lulls were a little more effective. There was a lot more tragedy in this book. All the factions were finally come down to this one point. Sal is telling her story to this good-willed emissary, a merchant of sorts. This merchant is brought in to try and find a way to negotiate the surrender of this town that Sal is in. Sal tells her story once again. It's a little more reflective. I actually enjoyed this third book equal to or a little bit more than the first book because it didn't quite dwell in some of that action for action's sake. It didn't quite dwell in the moments where I had to suspend my belief in reality. Some things had come to a point where this has definitely got to be addressed, and I thought Sam did a great job with wrapping up the book. He addressed all of the questions that I had had. In some ways, there were some things just seemed to work out, some deus ex machina type stuff, but I felt like it was definitely a satisfactory end. I'm glad I did finish the trilogy. I think some sequels are just more enjoyable if you give them some time to leave your mind before you come back to them. I have so many trilogies that I'd wondered to myself, if I gave that book about 3 months in between each reading, perhaps I'd come back to it just really excited, really thirsty to get back into that world. And I think I suffered some of that because when I came back into it on the third book here, I definitely was more open to reading some of that stuff. There was a couple moments still where the style is like, okay, here we go. We have to really go that route and say that again because you've been saying it in every book. But, every author has to do that sometimes to establish that character in each book so that we're all reminded that that's what type of person they are. I don't know if that's necessarily the fault of the writer, but I know that there are some writers that can just seamlessly catch you up in the story without blatantly just saying more or less verbatim what you'd said in the first and second books about that character.
Picky.
Yeah, I thought that was about the only knockback, but I really did enjoy this book, and I gave it a 4.6 out of 5 robes, just like book 1. So on the whole, the Grave of Empires Trilogy got a 4.5 out of 5 robes. I thought it was pretty fun. It was satisfactory. I feel like over time I've read some other trilogies that are probably way more involved and way more in depth, but I think it was just enjoyable to read this particular character, Sal the Cacophony. Something about her, she's kind of an anti-hero, hero. Grave of Empires, I would recommend this. It's probably a beginner to intermediate reading level. If you really like snarky characters that are just badasses in general, a great writing style. I think Sam Sykes was very fluid. These books read very quickly, very easily. I just soaked them right up. I mean, despite all the little nitpicks I think I have, they were very easy to get through despite all the pages. That's got to account for something. I just kept wanting to read it and coming back and all right, what's going to happen next? And I really felt that bug in the third book as well as the first book. But yeah, guys, I don't know if you've read any Sam Sykes books. I know these aren't much out on the internet at all. I've looked up book reviews for this trilogy. I haven't really found any on the internet. If I have found them, it's for the first book, so the Seven Blades in Black. Hopefully, if you're curious about the whole trilogy and not just book one, hopefully this helps. If you have any comments about the trilogy at all or in general, or why you finished it, or maybe why you didn't finish it, leave a little comment down below. If you like what we're doing here, please leave a like and a subscribe and do the bell and put your bean and all that stuff. And remember, keep reading.